Imagine dedicating your life to helping others, only to find yourself in a system that makes it impossible to do the right thing. What do you do when your integrity is put to the test, when speaking up could cost you everything? Today's guest, Sammi Tucker, faced that very moment. The choice: stay and compromise what she stood for, or walk away and risk everything she worked for. This is her story. Welcome to It's Your Story to Tell. I'm Megan Babcock, and I'm the podcast host here, bringing powerful stories of transformation, resilience, and purpose. And I'm honored to introduce you today to Sammi. She is going to share with us her journey. It's one of courage. It's one that made her face an impossible decision that really ultimately changed her life. So she's going to tell us a little bit about, in this first part, what led her to leave the hospital, the battle between what she was feeling was needed for the patients that she served, what she learned, and then in part two, we're going to get to hear about how she's now using all of that hard to make a difference. Thank you so much for being here with me, Sammi.
Oh, thank you, Megan. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm going to hand it over to you and just let you share your story with our audience.
Yeah, awesome. So my story is what I consider the non-traditional route. I did not go to nursing school right out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I moved somewhere sunny and said, let me see. All I know is I want to help people. So that's what I did. I went out and I actually became a teacher first. And then into teaching, I realized that was probably not the place that I wanted to stay long term. So I became a nurse after that, went back and got my nursing degree. And man, it was the best decision of my life. So after that, I got the privilege of doing an amazing residency program in a ICU. And that is where I found my home as a nurse. It's where I ended up staying. And it was truly, in the beginning, an incredible place to be. Even through the chaos of being a new nurse and learning ICU, it was an area where I felt I was making a difference. It was an area where I saw teamwork within nursing. It was an area where I just absolutely adored. And then as I started to become a more senior nurse on the unit, it was time for some changes because we were just noticing that the unit was shifting. And so it was around that time, I think it was a couple of years in at that point, that I was like, this is exhausting. I was like, everything is just, it's not what I'm used to seeing anymore. I was like, the patients are sicker, the families are suffering. We were going through the ideas of our nurses leaving and turning over so fast. I mean, we were having a new nurse come in and leaving within 6 months because the unit was just so exhausting. And on top of that, we faced a global pandemic, which our unit took on not only the neuro ICU, but the CV one as well, because the CV one turned into the pandemic's ICU. So it was a whole different thing. But during all this, I got the opportunity to witness a young man come in on his wedding day. And this was definitely the defining moment of my nursing career as an in-hospital nurse, was this idea of he rolls in. He was what, as nurses, we knew he was brain dead. He had suffered a catastrophic hemorrhage. And his wife, his fiance, came in following the ambulance. His family came in following the ambulance, and it was just devastating. Everyone was devastated. The nurses were devastated. You know, he was there. We were getting him ready for what in our region is called gift of life, which is organ donation, because he was an organ donor. And I looked at his family and I looked at his future wife at that point, because they had not gotten married yet. His mom had walked in to the groom's suite to him on the floor and said, we need to do something to help these people right now too. And so that started, with my nurse wife is what I call her, but my nurse wife, my bestie, we both said, we're doing something about this. So we have both been in environments where we knew they did these care things, like care bundles, I would say, for NICU babies. They have care bundles for peds parents, God forbid there's, a demise. And yet we have nothing for the families of adults. It's like, oh, well, they've lived their life. But did he really? Because this young man was 25. Like, did he really live his life? So I would say the woman in the wedding dress would disagree. So the two of us started a program that was so wonderful. We started making companion care. And what this did was it brought in comfort items, things that you would think of, everybody would think of as comfort items. And we created a kit. There was a blanket. There were all kinds of things. There was counseling available, but mostly it was ways to physically represent how the nurses could care for the family as well as the patient. And we reserved it for patients' families who were terminal, where we knew that this visit was their last visit, and that was it. So it was amazing. The feedback we were getting from families was incredible. The feedback we were getting from patients, because not every patient is intubated and sedated on their journey to death, right? And so there were things saying, taking care of my family and me is bringing me so much peace in my last days. And it was just my heart as a nurse, but also just my heart as a human was just bursting with pride and with love and with connection and healing, which is what we want to do as nurses, is like, this is real healing. So after a few months, we aimed to get some grant money. We got a little bit, not a lot. And then we aimed to make it a permanent portion of our hospital system. And that is where everything changed. This is where I feel as though it was the tougher part, because I love being a nurse, and this is the darker side, I think, of this story. But when we started this, it became a war zone of finances and moral compromise and challenging on our motives, why we would even want to do this. And so the battle began of, we're not going to allow you to continue to do this. And when I say everyone, and as a nurse, it's rare for every nurse on the floor to agree with something. And when I say every nurse on that floor was like, what? What do you mean we're not continuing this? We were floored. We couldn't believe it. We were like, this is not real. Like, this is the most good anybody can do in a terminal patient's life. Like, this is giving them comfort and giving their family comfort, so that they know they're not only taken care of physically, but their family is taken care of emotionally in the last moments. And it was just, we were like, there's no way that this is not working. We know it's working. So what's going on? So I am a Greek, and therefore I have a very large mouth. And so I always say I got like the loudest genes, because I got the Scottish genes and I got the Greek genes. I was like, there's no shot of me being quiet ever. So I went, and of course I said something, as well as my work wife, my counterpart. So we both said something, and we were like, you have to keep doing this. We brought numbers, we justified cost, we brought reviews, we brought the satisfaction surveys from the floor, from the unit. We came armed, like ready to go to battle. And they looked at it and they said, this does not matter. It's costing us too much. We said, what if the nurses volunteer? What if the only cost is the actual items that we are getting? And what if we can get them donated to the hospital for these patients and their families? Because it was not substantial amounts of things. It's the thought, So they said no, because of some bureaucratic reason about taking donations and this and that. We're like, well, what about if we donate time and all we need is for you to buy the supplies? No, we don't have that kind of money. So finally, my work wife, my counterpart over there, was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, we went from helping so many people to what feels like all of these shallow, incomplete deaths, and I can't do this. And in an ICU, many people know there's a lot of death. It's yes, it's
Mhm.
critical care, but there's also a lot of death around it. I stayed a little longer and kind of started a little bit of an uprising that was like fighting back. I was like, absolutely not. Like, this is not happening. We're still going to do this. I said, I'll pay for it out of my own paycheck. I will pay for the supplies that we need
Wow.
because this is what our patients need and their families. Um, and then, so I started bringing in stuff. Then I got written up for bringing in items that ended up going to patients' families because that was not allowed. And then finally, after we, were complaining enough, they had a meeting. We all kind of said, "What's going on? Why are we not allowed to do this?" And they reiterated very bureaucratically, like, we can't do it because of this and that. And I challenged them and said, no, this is not because of that. It's because of money. We all know what this is about. It's because of money. You don't want to pay the couple $100s to fund something that's making a difference in other people's lives because it doesn't matter to you. And I will never forget, the director and the manager looked right at me, and the director said that the the patient's comfort doesn't matter. They're dying.
I
I know.
mean, when you were sharing the story before we recorded that and I heard that, I'm like, wait a second. These are the people making the decisions
Yep.
about the care that's being delivered.
Yep.
And we wonder why we are disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
not aligned with our values, because that statement right there makes everything inside of me turn as a, not just as a nurse, but as a human and as somebody who has had family in the hospital, who's had to fight and advocate. It's injustice. It's so wrong because we as nurses, our family, they have the benefit of loudmouth. I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to make a stink. You're going to do what's right for my family member and any friend. They call me, I'm on it. You
Yeah.
just tell them
Yeah.
that I'm your patient advocate and we'll get things done.
Oh yeah.
But that is not accessible to the majority of the population. And so you rely on what you think in these leadership roles to be that voice, that advocate, the one who's standing in between the middle of the the nurses doing the care, hearing them, and the management of the hospital, because it is a business and you do have to be good stewards of your finances. But
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't seem like there's any balance in it. And
Yeah.
oh, I just
I know.
am sitting there with you like, this makes me so angry.
I know. And trust me, the shock that you're feeling, and I'm sure everyone is feeling, is exactly how I felt because to this day, I still remember the immediate response that my body went into hearing that of like, what did you just say? Like, what? You're telling me a person's last moments on this earth don't matter? Don't matter. Not everyone is a candidate for full sedation as they pass. So some people are there really with it until their last 10 to 15 minutes, and you're telling me that them watching their family be comforted isn't comforting to the patient? We've had patients say, this is the biggest blessing I could have gotten before I leave this earth, that you are helping me take care of my family in these last moments, that it wasn't us just ignoring the family and only taking care of the patient, and that connection was what gave them comfort at the end. Of course, we have medications, we have the things, but that connection is what gave them their last moments. And it was almost an out of body experience because when he said that, I felt like everything I had done just like flashed in front of my eyes. I was like, what? And so, of course, I looked at him and said, I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you just said that. Thankfully, they did this at the end of night shift, beginning of day shift. And so when I tell you the entire night shift just basically said not so nice words and left because they were like, we are so done. It was, and night shift does not play, right? So it was like, it was truly an out of body experience. And it was so soul crushing. I mean, here I am in a career that I spent thousands and thousands of dollars in a second career that I've chosen. And here I am being told my patient's comfort doesn't matter. And it's basically, in a nutshell, to stop helping them because we're not going to pay for it. So, of course, I continued to fight about it. I did not let this go. Probably my fault, but I couldn't. I couldn't let it go. So it became the hill that I would die on for the rest of my nursing career in that particular hospital system. And so after that meeting, my schedule started getting changed. All of a sudden, I was no longer eligible for overtime, even though I was one of the more senior nurses. I was no longer getting the shifts that I had selected for weird reasons. I was getting the toughest patient loads on the floor, no matter what. They'd have me at two completely opposite ends of the floor. It was so unsafe. I mean, especially in many ICUs, there's either circles or they're triangles, but either way, you're usually pods together so you can help. And they would have me split all over the place. They'd write me up for whatever they decided to come up with that day. And then the final straw was basically that I came in 2 minutes late. And that was what they used to tell me that I was going to be written up and that if I didn't change the way I was starting to behave, I was going to be fired. And so I was like, okay, well, this battle is no longer something I can physically sustain. At that point, I was losing my hair. I had lost so much weight. I was coming home and crying every day for my shifts. I was in a true emotional turmoil. I was exhausted. I mean, I was exhausted, not able to do any self-care, not able to exercise, not able to eat. And so that moment of realizing that they were just never going to give up was my moment of saying, okay, well, I'm out. And so now this was months after my counterpart had left. I followed her and multiple nurses actually followed me. So it was really, my friend started the cascade when she left.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when I called her to tell her that they had written me up, she was like, no, no. And so then she kind of gave me that courage to be like, no, I'm out. So I left, and then a couple nurses followed me after that. It started really kind of a mass exodus of the nurses who, what I say, knew better. Because I think it was really all of us who are a little bit older, a little bit more experienced to know that you can challenge management and they don't get to do whatever they want. And so I left and I thought my nursing career was over, but it was not. And I got to go into an amazing new adventure.
In part 2 with Sammi, we're going to explore how she turned that pain and frustration. I was feeling anger when I'm hearing it, but how do you then work through that so that you can take those things and make an impact? So stay with us. You're not going to want to miss how Sammi is now making a difference in the world, feeling aligned with the values and coming alongside of people and truly helping them to heal.